Good morning, second grade. How are you today? We are going to start a new reading unit, and this unit is on treasures. So, our big question to be thinking about as we are reading treasures stories is what makes something valuable for a time or for eternity? So, when you have something that you treasure, think, is that something you're going to treasure forever, or is it something you're going to treasure right now? And what makes the difference between those things? What are treasures for here? What are treasures forever? What are something that you treasure for a little while versus treasuring for a whole lifetime? And then what about even beyond lifetime? What are the things that we should treasure for eternity, for always? And so we're going to be looking at Matthew 6, verses 19 and 21. And those verses say, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So that's the thing we're going to be thinking about. What should we be treasuring here on earth? What does the Bible have to say about the things we should treasure? You might recognize that verse because we sing it sometimes, and I'm going to post it so that you can be reviewing that song and singing it as we think about treasures. So people treasure things that are valuable to them or important to them. So I'm going to be asking you guys when we're together, what are something that you treasure? And that can be a physical thing, or it can be a memory. It can be something someone gave you, something you own, something you have, something you've done. It can even be people. You can treasure people. So we're going to be talking about some of our treasures. So be thinking about that in the next few days. So our first story that we are going to do is called The Library by Sarah Stewart. Sarah Stewart wrote this book and David Small illustrated it. Sarah Stewart and David Small are a husband and wife team who did a number of books. I really like some of them. I'm going to be reading you another one by them in a week or two called The Gardener. And if you have any of their books, that's great. I think they write really good books. This one is a lot of fun. It's called The Library, and it has to do with something that the character in this book treasures. And I think you can already tell, even just from the cover, what it is that Elizabeth Brown treasures. So I'm going to read this book to you today. If you look at the first page there, you've got all these books. The Library by Sarah Stewart. Pictures by David Small. You can see right here, it says, "Into the memory of the real Elizabeth Brown, librarian, reader, friend, 1920 to 1991. And they put it in a little drawer. This is how libraries used to sort their books, so that if you needed to find a book, you could look it in under something called a card catalog, and there are actually little cards in it. Now we all do it on computers because that's a much faster and better way to do it. But before that was the way we did it. So that was a card catalog. This book was published in 1995, and you can see that right there by the text copyright and the little C in the circle. Elizabeth Brown entered the world, dropping straight down from the sky. Elizabeth Brown entered the world, skinny, nearsighted, and shy. She didn't like to play with dolls. She didn't like to skate. She learned to read quite early and at an incredible rate. She always took a book to bed with a flashlight under the sheet. She'd make attentive covers and read herself to sleep. Elizabeth Brown went off to school dragging her steamer trunk. Elizabeth Brown unpacked her books, breaking the upper bunk. She sat in all her classes and doodled on a pad, adrift in dreams of entering a reader's Olympiad. She manufactured library cards and checked out books to friends, then shocked them with her midnight raids to collect her books again. Elizabeth Brown preferred a book to going on a date. While friends went out and danced till dawn, she stayed up reading late. So you'll have noticed that a lot of time has passed in these first few pages of our book. She started as a newborn baby, and then she's a kid, and then she's off to school a little bit later, and now she's all the way up to a young adult. So Elizabeth Brown is aging as our book goes on. Time is passing, but one thing remains true through the whole book, and that is Elizabeth Brown loves to read. She took a train one afternoon and promptly lost her way, so bought a house and settled down to tutoring for pay. Elizabeth Brown walked into town, summer, fall, winter, and spring. Elizabeth Brown walked into town looking for only one thing. She didn't want potato chips. She didn't want new clothes. She went straight to the bookstore. May I have one of those? Elizabeth Brown walked right back home and read and read and read. She even read while exercising and standing on her head. She made a list of groceries and tucked it in her books, then lost the list among the fruits and left with nothing to cook. She read about Greek goddesses while vacuuming the floor. Attending only to her book, she'd walk into a door. Books were piled on top of chairs and spread across the floor. Her shelves began to fall apart as she read more and more. Big books made very solid stacks on which teacups could rest. Small books became the building blocks for busy little guests. When volumes climbed the parlor walls and blocked the big front door, she had to face the awful fact. She could not have one more. Elizabeth Brown walked into town that very afternoon. Elizabeth Brown walked into town whistling a happy tune. She didn't want a bicycle. She didn't want soap bows. She went straight to the courthouse. May I have one of those? The form was for donations. She quickly wrote this line. I, E. Brown, give to the town all that was ever mine. So you can see there's her house, and there's now a sign by it that says Elizabeth Brown Free Library. Elizabeth Brown moved in with a friend and lived to a ripe old age. They walked to the library day after day and turned page after page after page. So there was something in this book that Elizabeth Brown treasured. Elizabeth Brown treasured books. She loved books so much that that's what she spent all her time doing, all her money on. And then she came across a problem at the end of the book, right? She realized that she was not able to have any more books because she did not have any more space. And if you look at that picture, you can definitely see that's the case. So Elizabeth Brown found a way to share the things she treasured with the people around her, with her community. And so she donated everything, including her house, and made a library. And she kept going back to the library every day to read more books. But I would like you today to find some time to look at this book again and read it yourself. As you're looking, you might notice that there is a tiny teddy bear on almost every single page in the book. So Elizabeth Brown has a teddy bear right at the beginning of the book. You can see it, I'll show you there, right there, and that's the little teddy bear. So as you're reading the book, look for Elizabeth Brown's teddy bear in all of the pages. I'd like you to work on the first page of your story study sheet, that front side, and fill that out for me so that we can talk about it together tomorrow. So enjoy this book. I think it's a wonderful book. It's a lot of fun. Thinking about things people treasure is fun because you get to feel someone's excitement for something. And so we get to feel Elizabeth Brown's excitement for books. And I would guess, though I don't know Sarah Stewart, that she probably feels some of that same way as Elizabeth Brown because she does such a good job about talking about how much Elizabeth Brown loves books.